Am I doing the right things? Am I in the right rooms? Am I showing up the right way? If you're asking yourself those questions, however you found this podcast, you're in the right place. Welcome to Career Convos with Nikki.
All right, so this first episode of the CPA Exam Series of Career Convos with Nikki, I want to talk you through where I started, going back to the beginning, and where it started, and how I got to where I am. So, going back to the beginning, as far as going back to when I graduated with my accounting degree from Fisher at the Ohio State University. So at that time, like the quarter of graduation, the few months after, and how that whole prep went. So we had been, we meaning accounting students, career counselors, professors, advisors, they had been telling us about how to be strategic in exploring career opportunities and looking at public accounting versus industry. Had a few conversations about the CPA license, especially because the CPA exam had just changed a few years prior from the pen and paper to the computerized exam. A few years prior, we had also had the introduction of SOX after the whole Enron, Arthur Andersen, Tyco, all of those scandals came bubbling to the surface. And in my mind, I was like, yeah, if I'm an accountant, I have to be a CPA. That's like going to medical school and not doing a residency. So I feel like it wouldn't be complete. I feel like my career would be incomplete if I got an accounting degree and I wasn't a CPA. I wasn't a certified public accountant. So with that, I kept it in the back of my mind. Like, I do need to go and get this CPA license. At the time, my 22-year-old mind is thinking all I have to do is take the exam and I get a license. So I was saying I do need to do that at some point. But doing that means that I'm going to be studying some more like I've been doing for the last 5 years. And right now, I want to see what this accounting degree talking about. And I want to go out here and get me a corporate accounting job and make me some money. So when I see what that's about, then I'll come back and see what I need to do to get my CPA license. So that was that. So I'll start my career in industry. There were reasons why I chose to not pursue public accounting. There's a whole nother career convos with Nikki episode about why my career is all industry, why I did not choose public accounting. So you can listen to that on Career Convos with Nikki. That might be the name of it, of this episode. Why I didn't do public accounting or something like that. So getting my first job out of school, and in those first few years, I'd say the first 5 years, I was the definition of a job hopper. And it wasn't job hopping, like being at a job for 6 months and leaving and doing something else, then being here for a year and doing that. It was a lot going on at the time. The first job I had, I was there for about 6 months. And then they told me that the division I worked for was going to be divested. And so the role I had, which was a financial analyst, was a role that was newly created just for me. So you create this new role for me. I'm in the role for 6 months. The company is put on the block for sale. And now my role potentially goes away. Just out of college, I didn't want to deal with that type of uncertainty. I was like, nope, not going to do this. Let me find something a little bit more stable. So I moved around. I moved to different cities in Ohio. So that was part of my moves. And there was also a point where I felt like I'm done with Ohio. I've lived in every major city. There's really nothing else for me to do here. Here comes another terrible winter, and I don't want to do this no more. So then another job move came when I relocated from Ohio to Georgia. And so in those 5 years, I moved around a lot, but I learned a lot too. And every job I had, I was intentional about soaking up everything I could about accounting. So my first job was manufacturing cost accounting. I learned really quickly, and I remembered my cost accounting classes. I remember, or I it sunk in with me real quick that manufacturing is not an industry I would be interested in. So, but I learned it, and I had a job where it was a real on the job type of experience where every morning I would have to mess up my freeze curls because I had to put on a hard hat, and I had to take off my stilettos and put on some steel toe boots and go out into the plant, talk to the production manager, talk to them about what happened overnight, what products got made, what came in on the rail cars, what we need to do for audit, what we need to do for the annual physical inventory count. All of those things I learned. And then my second job, I learned about joint venture accounting and the month end close cycle, producing corporate tax returns, nuclear pharmacy, which if you think about nuclear pharmacy, you think about like weapons of mass destruction. At least I did, but I learned something about pharmaceuticals, healthcare industry. Really learned how to work on a team. I learned how politics and reporting structures and hierarchies. So I learned a lot of technical accounting stuff, but I learned a lot of non-technical cultural things. A lot of those, what I call unwritten career rules, are things that I learned. And then another job, I learned about intercompany accounting. And when you work for a subsidiary and you have to close the books with the subsidiary, then you have to close again. So 2 month end closes in 1 month. You close a subsidiary, then you close with the parent, consolidated financials, complicated account reconciliations, reconciling equity accounts. I got to do a lot of different things. I got to see what happens not only on the due diligence and the boardroom side of divestitures and M&A, but also the political side of it when the companies who are merging or divesting or whatever they're doing in the transaction aren't really seeing eye to eye. And this is more of a, you know, on paper thing, but because it works, it's a mutual benefit, but we don't like each other. There were so many things I was able to see even as I moved around. And so within 5 years, I went from a financial analyst to, wait, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so within 5 years, I went from a financial analyst to a manager, managing a team of 30 people, managing multiple departments. And it's still in my mind now. You know, I've seen a lot. I've done a lot in a short time. I need to revisit the CPA thing, figure out what that needs to look like, and start putting my plan together for what I'm going to do. But by this time, I am pregnant with my son, working a manager job. This was like 2007, so still within those 5 years. So it was more like, no, it wasn't even 5 years. It was more like 3 years. Within 3 years, I went from a financial analyst to a manager. And then at this time, I'm pregnant in 2007. I have my son in 2008. And I got to the point where I took an extended maternity leave. And when it was time to go back to work, I was having these mixed emotions. Like, I don't want to drop my baby off for somebody else to take care of him. I don't want him to go to daycare with all the germs. And it's just like a standing petri dish in there. And I would rather be home with him. I don't want to go back into the office. I don't want to deal with these people. And I was like, if I was a CPA, I could build my own business and I wouldn't have to worry about dealing with these people, and I could make my own rules and build my business my way and this, that, and the third. So in 2009, I started the Winston Accounting Group. Today, it's the Winston CPA Group, but at the time, it had to be the Winston Accounting Group because I wasn't a CPA, so I couldn't put any reference to CPA in my company's name. So at that time, I grew my business through word of mouth. This is when, the entrepreneurs, the creatives, the business owners, the Black Girl Magic was really starting to pop on Twitter. And so I got to know a lot of people on Twitter, business besties, if you'll call them. I got my first client off of Twitter, actually. Somebody who I used to talk to on a daily basis on Twitter referred one of their business associates to me, and I helped her with some stuff. And to this day, I still have the testimonial that my first client gave about how she enjoyed working with me, how thorough I was, how she would definitely recommend me and work with me again. And I solved all of her problems and, addressed all her issues. And I was like, yeah, if I can do this without a CPA, imagine what I'm going to do when I am a CPA. And so the Winston Accounting Group was there. I still had my corporate job, and I'm a new mama, and I'm trying to figure out this whole employeepreneur thing. So I do like corporate accounting. I do like my job, so I don't want to leave my job, but I still want to build something of my own, and I want to do it in a way that feels right to me, that it can grow and evolve with me, so I don't have to feel like I'm rushing just to throw a business out there to say I have a business, but I have time to really let it simmer, let it marinate, let it build it out, and give it the time that it deserves to grow and develop and evolve. So I did that, got into doing taxes for a few years. Fast forward to 2011, I'm pregnant with my daughter. I'm put on bed rest for 18 weeks. That shit was crazy. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother day over on the Working Mamas podcast. And I was like, okay, now I got 2 kids, and having 2 kids is way different than having 1 kid. And I got the same 24 hours, but I have way more responsibilities. I got my job. I got 2 babies. I'm trying to build a business, and I got to figure out how I'm going to make this work. But here I go again, still got that CPA in the back of my mind. And so becoming a CPA occupied some prime real estate in my head for probably the next 2 to 3 years. And so within that time frame, of course, I'm a mama, I'm working, I'm trying to juggle and manage it all, and still building up my corporate accounting career and my brand as an accounting professional. So I started being invited to join boards and serve on the board of directors, serve as advisor, serve on different councils and things like that. And so one of the boards I was on, I was a board member of NABA Atlanta, and we had board members every month at the SEC building, and there were maybe 8 or 9 of us, and I would say 70% of the board were CPAs. I was part of the 30% that was not. And I would talk to them about it. I looked forward to our board meetings because I enjoyed being around them. I felt like, let me see what the energy and what the air and what the aura is like when you're in the midst of CPAs, and how that inspires and rubs off on me. And I would tell my board members about my intentions. Yeah, I'm going to study for the exam. It's on my list. I'm going to do it, but it's a lot going on right now. Shit crazy at work. My kids are little, all these things, all these factors that were hindering me from becoming a CPA. And I remember August of 2014, it was dark. And we were late leaving the board meeting because we finished the board meeting and we hung around and just pontificated and lollygagged for a minute. And I walked out with one of my board members. And we got on the subject of the CPA. And she asked me, why are you not a CPA? And I told her exactly what I just mentioned. I'm working on it. It's on my list of things I'm going to do. But work is crazy. It's a lot going on. I'm traveling. My kids are little. I was just giving her my whole sob story of why the CPA exam was a thought in my head and not an action in reality. And I told her all of that. And when you share that with somebody and you're just laying out for them why you haven't done it yet, it feels like a lot. It can feel heavy. It can feel overwhelming. And I don't know why I was expecting empathy. And I thought she was going to say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I get it. But instead, she said, okay, so what's stopping you? And I said, well, it's a lot going on. I don't even know how I'm going to find the time to do it because I can barely find time for my life right now. And she said, okay, what's stopping you? And I kept giving her different things, like wondering when she was going to say, okay, I get it. I feel you. But I didn't get that from her. She lit a fire under me. All she kept saying was, what's stopping you? And she talked me out of my excuses until I didn't have any more excuses to give by the 7th or 8th time that she had said, what's stopping you? And I said, you're right. What's stopping me? And she challenged me and she said, so I want to know that by our next board meeting that you've at least looked at review courses. I said, okay, I'll do that. But me having a fire lit under me like that and feeling like ain't nobody going to challenge me and I'm not going to lose the challenge. So I'm going to do you more than, this is what I'm saying in my head. I'm not saying it to her. This is what I'm saying actually in my car on the way home from the board meeting. Like, this is what, I'm going to do you one better. I'm not just going to come back and look at the course materials. I'm going to show you that I've enrolled in in the review program and I'm going to get started. So our September board meeting rolls around and I showed her, like, I picked a course and I started my classes. So I had picked a review course where I worked during the day. I would leave work about 5 o'clock and then I would go to hotel conference room and I would sit there from 6 to 10 with 10 or 15 other CPA candidates and we would do live review sessions. Now, what these sessions were, so I had course materials, I had the book, I had flashcards, I had videos, I had test banks, and the in-person was basically a live verbatim regurgitation of what was in the book. So if you just think about, I can go home, take my FAR book, for example, because I did FAR first, take my FAR book and I can read all 68 pages of this chapter, or I can go to this study group, which is essentially what it was, and we can read the pages out loud and we can talk through stuff and we can take breaks and say hi to each other and we can talk to the instructor for a few minutes after. So initially I felt like I need to be in class. I need to talk to people. I need to see it. I need to feel it, understand it. And I was like, I don't know what that did for me because I thought I was going to get something different out of the live in person, but we just literally read the pages of the chapter. And I still had to go home and do the practice questions, figure out the concepts, and try to memorize the things that they were telling me to memorize. And I went through all of that. I took FAR first, passed it with no problem. The reason I passed it with no problem is because all of those years where I had sat and thought about it, contemplated, pontificated, analyzed, overanalyzed, made excuses, all of those years where I was doing that, I was working in corporate accounting. And so corporate accounting is a great foundation for understanding FAR. And a lot of the FAR blueprint was essentially my day job. So this was almost like a test of how good I was at my job. So FAR was nothing. Passed it with no issues. And then I felt like, well, if all the other exams are like this, shit, I can be done in 6 months. Like, this is nothing. I'll be done in 6 months. So I'm done with that. I flip over to audit. So same thing. I have my books. I have the videos. I have the test bank. I have, and I'm still going to the live sessions for audit. But at this point, second time around, I felt like I got this. And FAR was a whole lot of content, and audit is like half of the content. The audit book was like half the size of the FAR book. I was like, I got this. I might not even need to come to all these in-person sessions, and I could really just figure this out on my own. So at the time, I think audit went up to A5, maybe A6. And I probably studied up through A3, maybe A4. So there was at least one whole section of audit that I skipped because I felt like I got this and maybe it's not going to be as hard as I thought. I procrastinated for nothing. Let me just go on and skirt through, knock these out. And I did that and I got a 72. And a couple things were going on there as far as getting that fail, like being on such a high from passing FAR and feeling like I was nervous about something that I shouldn't have been nervous about. And if I can pass this section and this section is easy, all the other ones are going to be like that. So that 72 knocked me back a little bit and it humbled me real quick. And that is where shit started to get real. So I'm going to pause for now because I want y'all to take in this part. And in part 2, I'll talk about what happened when I opened my email that said score notification and I saw that 72 for audit. So I'll stop there. Whatever thoughts, questions, comments, thoughts and feels you have about this particular episode, let me know. You can share it. You can send me a note. You can reach out on LinkedIn. But I want to give y'all that for now. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about part 2, when I failed an exam for the first time.
Okay, so like I said, I don't edit my podcasts for a reason. And we just needed to get down to it and have some conversations. Take take the mask off, rip the band-aids off, and just say what needs to be said. So if this episode hit home for you, first of all, I want you to rate this episode because when you rate it, that's how other people can find it and listen to it and engage and get some advice that they need as well. But also subscribe to Career Convos with Nikki. That way, when I publish a new episode, you will be the first to know. So again, if you are here because you're looking for some career advice and you don't know where to turn, the career convos don't stop just because the episode has ended. So head over to the show notes, click the link there. You can book some time on my calendar. We can talk about your specific situation. If you're stepping into a manager role, but they didn't train you how to be a manager, or you're trying to figure out how to get promoted, or you're just wondering, am I even in the right job? Because it's draining me, because they're not paying me enough, because I don't get excited to do this work. You don't deserve that in your career. So let's talk about how we can help get you on the path to the career that you love. So visit the link in the show notes or visit nickwinstoncpa.com/career. And you are welcome to book time on my calendar whenever it works for you. And also, don't forget to share this episode with your coworkers, your friends, your family members who might need to hear this as they deal with things in their own jobs. And tag me if you do share it at Nick Winston CPA on social media. I'm hanging out on LinkedIn most of the time, so I am here and you can find me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for rocking with me until the end of this episode. And I hope that you go and listen to some more episodes.